Hi everyone, my name is Miss Connolly. I started making videos for my 5th grade students and decided that math videos could be used by all, so here I am making as many math videos as possible to help as many students as possible. So please like, subscribe, and share. Parents, feel free to use this to help yourself, help your kids with the way we're learning math. Students, share with your friends if you think it'd be helpful for them. And teachers, feel free to use in any website that you want to. We're putting it all out there during this crazy time. If you have any topics you want me to cover, please email connollymathathome@gmail.com and I'll try to get a video together for you and get it out there for your students, for your kids, anything that you want. So today we're going to talk about subtraction in 2nd grade. So in 1st grade, students are learning to count back by ones. They're also thinking about subtracting groups of 10. So we're going to go over that and a couple other strategies that you're going to see with we'll just do with 2-digit numbers for 2nd grade for right now. Okay, so let's think about 25 minus 14. So this is something that students will be tackling, and then the numbers will get a little more complex. So one way that we learn to represent numbers in 2nd grade and in 1st grade is thinking about how many groups of 10 we have and how many groups of 1 we have. One thing that happens is we draw these strips to represent a group of 10. So this would represent 10 ones, but we draw it as a strip to make it efficient instead of drawing 10 individual boxes. So to represent 25, I might draw 10, 20, and then my singles, which represent the ones place, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 2 strips of 10 and 5 singles to represent 25. And what we want students to be thinking about is what happens when you take away a group of 10. So when we're subtracting 14, we see that we have 1 group of 10 to take away and 4 singles. So what students first start doing is visualizing with this representation. They're going to cross off because they're used to drawing all and crossing off. That's a strategy they learned in younger grades. They're going to cross off a group of 10. So we've shown that we've subtracted 10 so far. So what does this look like with equations? 25 minus 10. What we want students to recognize is that when you take away a group of 10, did anything happen to the singles over here? No, nothing happened to the singles. We like subtracting numbers that have a 0 in the ones place because we know that we're just subtracting from the tens place. So we had 2 groups of 10, we're getting rid of 1 group of 10, but nothing is happening to the ones place. Nothing is happening to the singles. So over here, 25 minus 10, you can see 2 groups of 10 minus 1 group of 10. Nothing happens to the singles. You're left with 1 group of 10. So what are we left with? We're left with 15. Then, since we've subtracted 10 so far, we have to make sure we subtract all 14. So they might come over here and say, I have 15 now. I'm going to subtract 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 15 minus 4 leaves us with 1 group of 10 and 1 single left over. That leaves us with 11. I have a hundreds chart hanging here because it's really important that students start exploring with this. Parents, make a hundreds chart. If you're at home at this crazy time, you don't have one, print one out, Google it. It'll help you. So if we're starting at 25 and we take away a group of 10, watch what happens on the hundreds chart. We go up 1 row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What's happening is we had 2 groups of 10. We're subtracting 1 group of 10, and that's why we land there. The ones place did not change. We just got rid of 1 group of 10. If we were to subtract 10 again, we would go here. So what's a way that students can use this hundreds chart to subtract? If I'm doing 25 minus 14, I start at 25, I subtract 10 all at once by going up 1, and then I count back 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see that I land on 11, okay? We're also gonna see students start to use a number line and think about 25 minus 10 is 15, minus 4 more is 11. So if I was representing these equations down here, you can see that I started with 25, I subtracted 14, and I land on 11. So that's one way that students are going to be thinking about subtraction. This is keeping this number whole. We did not break it up at all, but we subtracted the 14 by tens and then by 1, so we subtracted by place value. One thing that I want to make clear, that we are not breaking up both numbers when we're subtracting. Okay, so let's say for a second that we have 31 minus 14. We do not want students going 30 minus 10 and then 1 minus 4. And you can see why. We're not going into 1 minus 4. So that's something that they'll tackle and they'll make sense of, but we wanted them doing it with keeping one number whole. So we're keeping the first number whole. So let's look at some little bit of larger numbers. I want a bigger difference between the numbers. So we're going to start with subtracting 64 minus 25. Okay? So students had been using that representation with strips and singles. I'm going to move on to using the hundreds chart and the number line and thinking about what's going on. We'll make another video with the strategy of just using the strips and singles, showing on and crossing off, so we can go over what's happening. But let's talk about subtracting back here. So if I wanted to keep one number whole, which is 64, I'm going to model on the number line 2. You start to see the number line come in and be really important in the upcoming grades, so let's make sure we see it. I'm going to start with 64. What I want to do is think about subtracting 25 in parts. So I'm going to think about subtracting 20 first. Okay, so I'm subtracting the groups of 10 minus 20. We know that when we're subtracting, oh, that doesn't look so friendly. When we're subtracting a number with a 0 in the ones place, that the ones place is not going to change, just the tens place. So when I'm at 64, I have 6 groups of 10. I'm taking away 2 groups of 10. So 6 groups of 10 minus 2 groups of 10 leaves us with 4 groups of 10. That single, the 4 in the ones place is staying. Nothing happened to it because of the digit 0 in the ones place. So 64 minus 20 gets us to 44. Watch what happens on the hundreds chart. 64 minus 10. One group of 10, you have 5 groups of 10 now, minus 10. We get to 44. So the hundreds chart is here as a support for students to practice subtracting back by tens. Please, please, please use it. Now, let me show you with equations because your student might be writing it this way. So 64 minus 20 is 44. And we've subtracted 20 so far, and we want to know how much is, we want to subtract 5 more. Because we've subtracted 20, we need to subtract 25 total. So your student could be feeling ready to switch decades, because we know that if we subtract 44 minus 5, we're going to go into the 30s. So they might feel ready to do it all at once. But if not, and they might also be doing this in their head, they might say, well, I want to get to a landmark number, we're calling it, these numbers that are friendly, landmark numbers, okay? They might want to get to one by subtracting 4 first. They know how to get from 44 to 40. That's very easy for them. They know that if I take away the 4 singles, I'm going to end up with 0 as a digit in the ones place. So 44 minus 4 is 40. So far, I've subtracted 64 minus 24, and I'm at 40. I need to subtract 25, so I know I need 1 more to subtract. And then our answer in this particular strategy is the number that we land on. We land on 39. Okay, so we started at 64, we subtracted 25 in parts by the tens and the ones. We split the ones up to make it easier for ourselves, and we land on 39. We ended at 39, that's where our answer is. On the hundreds chart, we're starting at 64, minus 10, minus 20, and then 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So please practice using that hundreds chart. Visualize the number line, get it on the number line, practice with equations, all are important. So we kept this one number whole, we broke this one up by place value, and that's how we subtracted. But there's other ways that we can think about subtraction. And if you watch my 3rd and 4th grade subtraction video, it is the same strategies that I'm showing now, just with 3-digit numbers. So what your student is learning in 1st and 2nd grade is going to be really important for 3rd and 4th. And then, of course, I teach 5th, so I have to talk about how important it is. The students need these whole number strategies because when we get to fractions and decimals, we use the same strategies. So very, very important. All right, let's talk about 64 minus, what was it? 64 minus 25. I should never erase that. All right, so another way to think about 64 minus 25, you know that we're finding the difference between these two numbers. So we can say 64 minus 25 and find the difference, or we can ask ourselves, what is the distance between 64 and 25? What is the distance between them? So an equivalent expression here would be 64 minus something gets us to 25. So 64 minus something will get us to land on 25. The distance between these numbers can be determined with this equation. Another way to think about it, and it's going to be my favorite way at the end of this video, is we're going to think about 25 plus something gets us to 64. So what could we, instead of subtracting back, what could we add up to find the difference? The distance from here to here doesn't change whether we're going this way or if we're going this way. So we can do both. So let's talk about doing both. We're going to start with 64 minus something is equals 25. And we have to figure out what that is. And this is where your hundreds chart, number line, everything we've learned all comes together. So if I wanted to get from 64 to 25, I want to think about how far am I from one of those landmark numbers. In 2nd grade right now, landmark numbers are these numbers here. They have a 0 in them. In the ones place, they are multiples of 10. In further grades, multiples of 100, multiples of 1,000, they're all landmark numbers. Okay? If we're going to be technical, they're all multiples of 10. But anyways, so we want to jump there. So when we're thinking about going backwards from 64 to 60, students know that if you take away 4, just like we were just talking about, they know how to get to 60 quickly. They know that if you take away the 4 singles, you'll have a 0 in the ones place, and that number is easy to work with. So now, there's not a ton of thinking involved when the students are subtracting. We don't have to switch decades with ones place like we would before. So what they're going to do next, they could subtract 10 at a time. They could go minus 10, minus 10, minus 10 if they wanted to get close to 25. But we would do 64 minus 4 is 60. 60 minus 30 is 30. We are still working with the smiley faces. And then from there, students know how to make a group of 10 with 5 singles. They know from 5 singles to a group of 10, the difference is 5. So we take away 5 more and we land at 25. So this strategy, the answer is going to be a little bit different where we find it because we found the difference between these two numbers. We didn't land on 64 minus 25 and land on what the answer is. We found the distance between the two numbers. So our answer is up here. Okay? So first we subtracted 4, then we subtracted 30, then we subtracted 5. So how much did we subtract altogether? We ended up with 39 again. So what we did was we started at 64. We asked ourselves, what is the distance to 25? And our answer is right here where we find the difference. Let me show you with equations too. Maybe this time the student might want to subtract 54, 34, 44, 54, 30, no, 54, 44, 34, and then 24 might be too far. So maybe they want to subtract 30 all at once. Just another way to think about subtracting or finding the difference between the numbers. I'm still working with a friendly number here. Okay, so 64 minus 30 would get me to 34. Then the student might want to say, well, I'm going to get myself down to 30 so that I can work with a friendly number. Now I know how to get from 30 to 25. Sorry, it's hard to say it out loud and right at the same time. So I went from 64 to 25. What is the difference between those two numbers? It's 39. So we see 39 again. If you're doing it with equations and you're subtracting to find the difference between 64 and 25, your answer is here. Okay, so last strategy we're going to talk about, and there's more. Kids can be flexible with numbers in many different ways, but what I want to talk about is one of my favorite strategies, which is adding up. That's right. You can use addition to solve subtraction situations. Okay, so what just happened, we did before, is we counted back to 25. So we did 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. But this time, we're going to count forward. And it should feel a little easier for us because addition is a great way to solve subtraction. So again, I'm finding the difference between 25 and 64. Instead of coming backwards and thinking about taking away, the distance going this way is exactly the same. So I'm still going to use all those friendly numbers, those landmark numbers. We're going to think about what we know from first grade, which is making groups of 10. Love it. Every grade comes together. It's just so important that everyone sees this. Anyways, so what I'm going to do here, I'm at 25. I can use my hundreds chart for support. I want to get to a landmark number. I know if I have 5 ones, that if I add 5 more ones, I make a group of 10. The next group of 10 would be 30. So 20 plus 5 plus 5, 30. So your student might say, all right, I'm getting to a landmark number. And they can do it right on the hundreds chart, or they can practice making a number line. A little harder for second graders to get the number line, but good to practice. It will come up a lot in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. So we're at 30. Now some kids might say, well, I know that I have to add 34. And that's fantastic. We love to see that. They know that 3 more groups of 10 and 4 ones is going to get you there. They could decide to add up 10 at a time. They could go 10, 20, 30, and know they land on 60 and add 4 more. I'm going to show a jump of 30. They know 30 plus 30 is 60. And then, just like they knew how to go from 64 to 60, they know to add 4 singles to get to 64. So, I'll show you with equations. They start with 25. They say I'm going to add 5 to get to 30. And then they might just say, I'm going to add 34 and get to 64. Again, our answer falls here because we're finding the distance between the two numbers. And then again, you see, what is the distance between the 25 and 64? We added 5, then we added 30, then we added 4. So the distance between the two numbers in this strategy, just remember that first strategy I showed at the very beginning with the number line, the answer was in a different place. So be careful, keep track of your work. But the answer here, 39. Okay, and let's take a peek on that hundreds chart because parents, this is a good strategy for them. They're going to start at 5 and say, I know I need 5 to get here. So I've added 5. 10, 20, 30. So far I've added 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. So the hundreds chart comes in. It's really important, and they can see it on the number line, see how they're finding the difference between two numbers. They can use equations. So just to review the strategies we went over, We're going to keep one number whole, and then you can subtract this number back in parts. So you could subtract the tens and then subtract the ones. The second strategy I went over was finding the difference between the two numbers by subtracting back. So our answer was up here and we subtracted backwards. We jumped to landmark numbers to make it easier for ourselves. And the last thing that I went over was adding up to find the difference. So again, our answer to our strategy was up here. If you start at 25 and find the difference to 64, your answer's up here, and you can use addition to do it. We use those landmark numbers as much as we can. We subtract using the numbers that have zeros as a digit in the ones place. It makes it easier for us to subtract. It makes it easier for us to add. Those landmark numbers are really important. So if you have any questions, conleymathathome@gmail.com, and I hope this was helpful. Make sure you watch the 3rd and 4th grade strategies so you can see how all of this builds in the later grades. And then if you want to check out the video about subtracting mixed numbers, you'll see how I use adding up, and the connection is so important. So I hope you enjoy.